Hello investors, bonjour, my name is Mike Roux. I am the founder of Dividend Stocks Rock and the host of this YouTube channel where I help you invest with more conviction so you can enjoy your retirement. And today this is part 2 of the Manoeuvre series where I'm going to show you how I've used the Dividend Stocks Rock screener to find a list of 22 great potential for a Manoeuvre portfolio, a leverage portfolio. All of them shows great scoring. They're from various sectors, but I want to show you how I found them with using the stock screener, and then we're going to talk about each of them individually. So let's do this. So what you see here is our Dividend Stocks Rock stock screener. We look at over 1,100 dividend paying stocks on both Canadian and US market. And the way I've done it is I've explained that in our previous video. If you have missed this, I think it's a really good thing that you go back, watch the first video on the Manoeuvre. You can look at the link description below. And I've determined all the criteria I wanted to look at before making any stock selection. First, I like to start my research with a wide range. So what I did is I was looking for Canadian stocks, obviously, and then pro rating of 3, a dividend safety score of 3, and also a dividend yield minimum of 3. Why those 3 metrics? Well, it's quite easy to understand. I want to make sure that I have like companies that are at least good rated as they hold, that the dividend will increase year after year by at least 2, 3, 4%. That's my minimum target. And the yield minimum of 3% is because I need to generate income. I need to create a portfolio averaging roughly 4% yield. So some of them will be higher than 4, some others will be lower, but I cannot start thinking about picking up companies that I love like Alimentation Couche-Tard because the yield is too low and it's not going to be useful when you do a leverage strategy, because the entire idea here is to use the interest paid on the home equity line of credit to be deducted from the income I generate from that portfolio. So if I generate like a 0.85%, not gonna help me do anything. As you can see, there are a lot of companies right here you can do. There's a huge list, actually a huge list all the way down to 71 stocks, which is definitely too much. So what I did after I've pulled out this first stock screener is I went back and I started to add more metrics, looking at earnings per share, dividend revenue growth, and then dividend growth. I've looked at a payout ratio. I've looked at a lot of things. I also export everything into an Excel spreadsheet that have like roughly that 40 metrics that we track at Dividend Stocks Rock, including an ESG score, the shareholder rules. So I did a lot of research in terms of numbers, and then I went one by one to take a look at what they look like. And finally, what I did in my stock selection process is I've picked my favorite 2 to 4 companies for each sector. So now we're going to go into my portfolio and we're going to take a look at what it looks like. So there you go. We click on my portfolio and here I can build all portfolio I want. So you have the current pension plan, but I want to take a look at the Manoeuvre portfolio, which is obviously a portfolio model. I have not purchased those companies yet, but they're still on my list. So first thing, before we go into each of them, I just want to go down here to show you what it looks like. So what you can see here is almost 19% in financials, and then 18% in real estate, energy sector, utilities. So those will be the 4 largest sector in my portfolio, but I also have another 10% in communication services, 9% consumer discretionary, and 9% in industrial. So well diversified across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sectors out of 11, which is not that bad. I kind of like this overall diversification because at maturity, when I have all those stocks, which is including like 22 different companies, I will benefit from several different industries regardless of what's happening in the stock market. So now let's take a look higher up and we're going to filter them by sectors. So the first sector we see communication service, no surprises here. Bell and Telus, those are two of the largest telecom companies in Canada. There's like 4 players. Rogers is going to buy Shaw, so roughly we have like 3 players in the wireless industry in Canada. They control like 90% of the total market right now. Great oligopoly. I love BCE for its higher yield, so it's going to bring some stability in terms of stocks valuation, and then a great yield into my portfolio. And what I love about Telus is its growth perspective. The company is highly active in several technology industries, such as artificial intelligence, and then they're helping farmers and the healthcare sector to use technology and telecoms to improve their management and the industry overall. So strong dividend grower there, obviously. So those two companies, quite interesting. Now moving on to consumer discretionary, we have A&W. One of the largest fast food chain in Canada, so that could be interesting to have that in your portfolio. Strong dividend payers. What I love is even though they had to cut their dividend during the pandemic, they were super fast at issuing a special dividend, and then they increased their dividend every single time that they could as restaurants were reopening. Today, there's only about 200 restaurants that are in small shopping malls. All the others are standalone and usually have drive-thrus, so they're pretty much prepared for the next round of pandemic if we have any other waves or any lockdowns. Hopefully not. I don't think it's going to happen, but yet now they're back on their growth mode and they have been increasing their dividend ever since. Exco Technology, not the most easiest pick here. The dividend increase is not that incredible either. We only have like one in the past 5 years. Highly cyclical business. They're creating die molds, especially for aluminums. So they have a lot of orders coming from the automotive industry. So you can see it going up and going down. Will be a victim of inflation and cost of raw materials increasing, and obviously short chain supply disruption from the automotive industry. But overall, the company has not cut their dividend during the pandemic. Now they're going out, and I kind of like the 4.75% yield that we have right here. Moving on to the energy sector. Now we have 4 picks. I don't think I'm going to buy 4 different companies in the energy sector. Not a big fan of them, to be honest. But right now, this is part of this is a sector that will protect you against inflation. Those companies you can see: Canadian Natural Resources, Enbridge, Topaz, and TC Energy. So we have 3 long-term dividend growers that went through major oil busts, major recession, and market crashes without ever cutting their dividends. So CNQ, Enbridge, and TC Energy, very stable business. I particularly love the pipelines. So for Enbridge and TC Energy, for Canadian Natural Resources, as long as the oil barrel is over $70, they're gonna make a lot of money. So they don't need $70 to survive. But as long as it's over $70, they're generating a ton of money. As for Topaz, this is probably like the one that I may not invest in going forward, just because I don't want to have like a huge exposure to the energy sector. And at the same time, this one just started when the oil bust happened. So great timing for them. They are an hybrid in terms of they own assets and they rent them, so they get royalties payment, which is kind of a good system, especially because they don't depend necessarily on exploration. So their clients have the problems of spending for exploration. But even then, we all know how it works. Freehold Royalties is also a company that has a similar business model, and they ended up cutting their dividend in the past. Now they're doing well. But as you know, energy goes up, goes down, so you have to be careful. This is why I'm not too sure I want to go through too many different energy stocks in my Smith Manoeuvre portfolio, but at least they will be part of that potential buy list. Whenever I have that $500 coming in into my account, I'm looking at this list and I'm going to buy them one by one, and probably that the energy sector will be around the last, especially not the fourth pick, obviously. Financial stocks, obviously this is a place where you can find marvels on the Canadian market. I've selected Great-West Lifeco because one of the largest life insurance company, they have a strong wealth management sector. They're backed by Power Corporation, which is a gigantic company in the financial industry. And finally, rising interest rates will also help life insurance companies. So Great-West Life offering a decent yield, which is very interesting. We're talking about 5% yield and up. So this will also help to boost a little bit my average portfolio. Power Corp, major business, as I mentioned, treated like a deluxe bond, but offering a decent yield at 5% as well. While I've selected two Canadian banks, I couldn't help it. National Bank is there, Royal Bank, so my favorite one. Those are already in my portfolios in other accounts, so no surprise here. It was quite easy for me to just pick them and put them on the list. It's probably not going to be my first purchases, just because I want to have something a little bit more diversification, and maybe a little bit more exciting because I already know those companies. So I'm going to look elsewhere, but at least they'll be there on that list. Moving on to the industrial sector, not many great prospect over here. So I've selected Aecon and Exchange Income. Exchange Income, not the strongest dividend grower, obviously, but will yield around 5.5, no dividend cut during the pandemic. I think that Exchange Income deserves some attention. Flight traffic going northern Canada is picking up. I don't expect another lockdown, as I mentioned earlier. So I think that this company is moving outside of the pandemic. They're doing a lot better. Earnings are improving, and I expect the dividend growth to resume maybe next year. So that's going to be nice. For Aecon, it's a great play on infrastructure building, infrastructure construction. This one shows also a good yield. Most of their money is made through long-term contract. They have a huge backlog right now. They also have a participation in the Bermuda airport. This one is still struggling. We're not at 2019 traffic level yet, but it's coming slowly but surely, and you can see that you can expect that government will continue to invest massively in infrastructure. Therefore, Aecon should benefit from it. Now we're moving on to a sector that you're going to find a lot of great contenders for a leverage portfolio if you're looking for something with a higher yield. So REITs, real estate. I've selected Allied Properties, Choice Properties, City REIT with Canadian Tire, and Canadian Net REIT. For Allied Properties and Choice Properties, it's a lot more about the yield and the location. So Choice is not increasing its dividend that much. No increase for the past few years, but we now expect them to increase it. The FFO payout ratio is well under control. So it's about time that this grocery anchored REIT increase their dividend and reward some shareholders for their patience. As for Allied Properties, it's a mix of offices and apartments. Obviously, offices not the most thriving part, but this is like the one that has like the best location in Canada, so I'm not too worried about it. They have continued to increase their dividend throughout the rough period. So now that we're moving out of this bad period, I expect Allied to continue increase their dividend. City REIT, Canadian Tire, I've talked about it a lot. If you follow me on my blog, on the podcast, you've heard all about it. I think that Canadian Tire is an iconic brand. They're still growing. They have a lot of properties everywhere, and City REIT manage all of them. So I expect not huge growth, but still decent growth year after year, both for FFO and FFO per unit. Therefore, the increase of dividend should follow. Finally, Canadian Net REIT, small cap, very small business REIT. a lot of growth by acquisition right now. So obviously this one is a little bit tricky in terms of fluctuation, but again, high risk tolerance, leverage strategy, that's a perfect fit. This is one of the rare REITs showing a yield over 4% and still double-digit FFO per unit growth. This is actually my first purchase. So in April, I bought a few shares for $500 of Canadian Net REIT. I like the fact that they also put a lot of pressure on the tenants instead of like keeping all the financial pressure on their shoulders. This means that they're a triple net REIT, letting the tenant taking care of maintenance, taking care of taxes and other expenses around the property, like entrances. Finally, the last sector, but not the least, utilities. We're very lucky in Canada because we have amazing utilities. They are doing business across the world while they are still using Canada as a good base. So here I've selected 4 of them. Obviously, Brookfield family is there, but they are not offering a huge yield, but that's part of the process here. I really wanted to have Brookfield Renewable and Brookfield Infrastructure in my portfolio because they're going to bring a lot of stability. They're pretty much like investing in ETFs of utilities. I mean, Brookfield Renewable has a lot of hydroelectricity. They invest in wind farm and solar panels as well, and then transmission, while Brookfield Infrastructure has pretty much everything going from railroads to ports and data centers and pipelines. So it's kind of like having this entire ETFs of utilities just paying you every single quarter just to own them. So I really love this type of business model. Aggressive play on Algonquin. I've already had a complete video on this one, so look in the link description below. Renewable play, play on the renewable energy, obviously, and then Emera, which is kind of interesting. Huge capex, more than 20 billions to be invested in the upcoming years, all in Florida, flourishing states. And I like how management manage their budget and their project. Usually they do it on time, they do it within budget, so it's great for planning and obviously to increase the dividend along the sideways. Obviously now I have 22 stocks that would pretty much make a very great portfolio, as I showed you earlier. Well balanced in terms of sector allocation. In terms of prorating, most of them are buys or exceptional buys, so that's great as well. And for the dividend safety score, I didn't expect my portfolio to show a lot of good and stellar dividend growers, so I didn't expect double-digit dividend grower in that category for obvious reasons. When you're paying like 3.5, 4, 5% yield, don't expect super high dividend growth policy, but yet the purpose here is to beat inflation and to make sure that the portfolio average yield will actually pay more than the interest I pay on the line of credit. So if you have any questions about this list, about the Smith Manoeuvre and how I intend to grow that portfolio, see you in the comments below. And until then, stay invested.